And we're going to take a little bit of a look back today on what we think have been the standout brands, campaigns, and strategies across the digital and luxury e-commerce space. So it's going to be a really nice one for us to be able to share what's resonated with us from an advertising perspective and really showcase some luxury brands that are doing things really well. As usual, any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comments below and we'll try and get to them as and when we can. And we'll always have these available on demand. So if you do need to leave at any point, then you can jump back in at a later date. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to hear a little bit more about what you've chosen to showcase today. I'm going to start with you, David, if that's okay. Do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction into what you're talking about, and we'll take it from there?
This gives us a bit of an insight into what we like as individuals, this, doesn't it?
It really does. I think I know sneakily what everyone is talking about. So it's you'll see an insight into kind of who we are maybe as luxury shoppers as well.
So my pick is not necessarily my taste, but it's of course related to something in my life. Basically, I've got inspired by my daughter, my 14-year-old, because she asked a pair of UGG sneakers, and when I was researching to know what I'm going to present, I got the idea to UGG, yeah, they're quite a high price point for a pair of shoes. They kind of fit in what we're looking at, and so I had a review of what they're doing on social, paid social, organic, TikTok, etc. And I thought, wow, yeah, this is something I want to talk about because I like what I see. I like what I see, and why do I like what I see? It's because it was kind of like, I don't know them, but if they were my client, the client of the agency, they kind of execute everything I would brief or I would advise or suggest a client to do. Like they're the perfect student of me as a media buyer and meta professional and paid social professional would advise to do. And so this is why I picked UGG. And I really liked what I saw. In every angle, they kind of they do the perfect strike, really. So they kind of mixed everything. They're perfect everywhere. I've prepared a few images, a few snippets that I picked from there. So the first thing, when I open on UGG social media, I saw this couple of that you see here on picture. And I was like, whoa, who are they? And they were kind of talking about personal stuff, their personal choices in terms of clothing, of style, etc. So they're Asian. They're quite old also. And I was like, wow, that's very interesting. Who are they? And so I made a research, and basically, UGG went and found a niche of influencers that I didn't know about that Mundo America here is calling elderly influencers. So it's a couple, I guess by their name, because their last name is Kim. They're Asian, from Korea, and apparently they live in the US. And so they developed this huge following of 1.2 million followers on Instagram. They're very active on TikTok, and basically they shout about personal stuff. Apparently how they style themselves, what they would offer as a fashion gift, etc., to their family. And so it makes them very, very different to any influencer we usually see on social medias and on brand collabs. So this is Aki and Koichi Kim, and they're featured very extensively in UGG campaign. So that was one very good point. They address a part of UGG target. I can imagine they're very far from a 14-year-old daughter, right? So it increases the span of age that UGG is targeting. And then on the next slide, please, we can see. So this is an extract of UGG advertising on Meta, and so you can see that this is a produced campaign, right? It's very, very produced. We can see that everything, and it's the same tone of color everywhere. And so this is one kind of universe that is different than Aki and Kim. Apparently, this is a collab with also the artist Post Malone. So I'm not necessarily a fan. I don't really know what this artist is doing, but again, it brings us to another end of the spectrum of who is aiming at targeting, and so very different than Ike or even my 14-year-old daughter. And so you can see the color is very mountains. We can imagine that those guys are going for a hike in the mountains. So something that's not maybe very cold, but in between. And the color is very orange. You can see the format they're using. So you can see on the upper left corner they use videos. In the center, everything with that little arrow in a white circle are carousels. And then you can see also plain images. So they're really playing with the different ad format that Meta is allowing us to do, and that's great because I always advise our clients to use every kind of format. Why? Because the algorithm then, as I've said during those webinar today, the targeting and the way the algorithm optimized so that the brand gets the best for their budget, and also following the funnel strategy where depending on where a specific user had engaged in the past with the brand, whether they're totally new and it's their first interaction with the brand, or they already have an interaction. The algorithm has all those different cards to play, right? It's a bit like of a card game, right? The video is probably the best card where you open, it's an opening card, right? Where the person gets to discover the brand, the universe of the brand, the message of the brand. And then, somewhere in the middle, the algorithm will play other cards, which are the images or the carousels that build a story, right? A bit like in our framework with build, story, tell. And then sell is usually, and then we'll see that in the next slide, some product images or some product carousels where displays. So yeah, like the one here on the top in the middle, really, really centered around the product. So when a user already knows the brand, has been introduced to the brand, and maybe it's not their first interaction and they had several interaction, now is the time to feed them with products. And so on here you can see a lot of storytelling carousel, right? The one on the upper left, and that's another universe and another type of ambience UGG is getting into, and that's very seasonal, is the ski. So we can really see stories around friends or a person going to ski, enjoying their time in ski, or time enjoyed in between friends on a ski resorts. And so yeah, another angle that UGG is addressing. And so that's really what I like. Several story type, several angles, several types of people, several ad formats. We can see here also in the center, there's a nice video that's building a story, that's rolling out the story of friends having a good time in ski. And then they're doing shoes, but they're also doing jackets. We can see that jackets is on the left bottom corner. It's very seasonal, right? And it's very fashionable these days. We see that in the streets and everywhere. It's like this return sheep, I think. Sorry for my vocabulary, but very fluffy, is very, very current. And so yeah, that's very, very nice. Other video on the upper right corner. Yeah, so that's a very nice mix. And on the next, I think there's more images that I've chosen. So here you can see another type of thing. I'm going to talk about the bottom line, which is very product focused, right? So this is at the end where people have seen everything I've shown so far, and have engaged successfully with the brand. The algorithm will, based on what it served and the interaction and the response of the user, whether they clicked, whether they visited a product page, etc. on the website, the algorithm knows that through the data feedback loop, and so it's gonna feed then product, because in theory we can assume that the person is already know the brand enough to be able to receive those product images and think, wow, it's UGG. Yeah, I've known them. I've seen the universe they offered me to discover. I became familiar. Maybe I like them because I visited the website, and then so now it's time to see the product. Last thing on the top is UGC. So you have the unboxing format on the upper left corner. Another thing we advise our clients to build and roll out for their following and the people they're targeting through ads. And on the upper right corner, it's a type of UGC where somebody is just showing what they purchase and what they do with the product. So yeah, that's something that's very engaging. And then on the next slide, I'm going very quick now because we've seen a bit of that, but it's another universe of color, different angle of colors, another something more cozy, more Christmassy. You can see those fluffy slippers that all the 14-year-old are raging about these days. And to be honest, they look very nice. To be honest, seeing them in my household, I want a pair of them for myself now because they look great. So yeah, and another angle of story in the upper right corner in video, you can see carousels as well. So they're really, really extensively used, all the type of format that are allowed on the platform. I don't know if I have another slide. Yeah, that's TikTok. So to make a crossover between the paid and their organic. So that's their organic TikTok feed. And so you can see that Ike and the couple is again featured. You can see some Christmassy things, maybe some ski things. So again, they're repurposing the same, I guess it's not the same exact thing they roll out on paid, but we can see that it's been produced during the same campaign. So it's very related to, so again, the connection is really perfect because whether you served an organic or a paid advertising, it has the same feel. So that's very native. Their paid is very native to what their organic is. So yeah, and last one thing, lower right corner, you can see also a product review featured as a organic post. So again, they're trying everything and they're using everything they have. So again, very, very perfect study case.
You can see it's a clear part of their strategy to expand revenue, and they want to go after younger audiences. I think that brand's gone through a bit of a cycle where they've gone through targeting a certain audience, and then they've realized that audience has grown with them, and so their overall audience that they were advertising to was probably quite a bit older than when they first started. So they've used lots of different colors, lots of different, as you said, lots of different strategies, lots of different channels to try and attract a younger audience, and done that with influencers, done that with UGC, and really sort of quite cleverly re-expanded the appeal of their brand. It's clever, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think UGG's such an interesting one to look at because I mean, I'm a millennial. UGG's kind of surged into the forefront of people's minds when I was in high school, and they were incredibly popular in kind of the 2010s, and then they became quite unfashionable quite quickly. In that kind of trend cycle that we see in fast fashion and also in luxury and just in kind of consumer trends as a whole, especially within retail. And then I would say over the past couple of years, there was like this resurgence of like Y2K fashion, and UGG started to become popular again. And what the brand have done really well is got on that train, I think, and really like pushed, knowing that they were coming back into style, and just really kind of nailed what their strategy looked like to make sure that they stayed kind of at the forefront of people's minds. And the trend has lasted a lot longer than I would have thought it would. And people are still buying Uggs. They're obviously coming out with new styles. So it as David said, they're doing jackets and slippers and all sorts now. So I think it goes beyond kind of their marketing, but also their product team and like the whole business working as a whole to be able to make sure that they're able to sustain the popularity that they have. So I think it's a really, really interesting kind of case study to look into from a brand perspective. Wonderful. Well, thanks, David. I am going to talk about Coach. So kind of luxury accessories. I can't get them off my socials. They're everywhere. And again, kind of links back to what I said before in terms of this like resurgence of trends. Coach was, when I was growing up, was seen as a brand for older people, slightly older people. They've done what I think is a really great job at being able to tap into a younger market through using TikTok with kind of the collaborations that they're using, the celebrities or the public figures that they're choosing to use as ambassadors, and then also the different initiatives that they've come out with specifically this year. So one thing that I did want to touch upon is their Coachtopia initiative. I'm just going to play a really short video that kind of explains what it is. And this is a paid ad that they use on their TikTok. So it's being pushed and promoted through TikTok with a 33% click-through rate. So just bear that in mind when we're watching it.
Is Coachtopia, our vision of a circular future.
It's a place where we turn waste
into opportunity.
Taking 80 years of Coach craft
to transform what already exists into beautiful materials.
Designing things not for just one life,
but for many lives.
That can be loved, passed on, remade, and reused.
as part of a growing community.
This is our Coachtopia. And we're building it together. Staying connected to every product.
so we can follow its journey as it lives multiple lives.
And whenever you decide to set your product free,
We'll take it back and reimagine it, repurposing even the tiniest scraps so it can live another life. We're glad you're here.
It's clever, that, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's immediately talks about circular supply, circular fashion, which is something that younger audiences and younger consumers are more in tune with in terms of how the products are being made, how sustainable they are. And then also talking about how once you're done with it, it can then live a new life. And, you know, it's not going to landfill. It's not just going to sit in your house. There's an incentive there for you to recycle and reuse. And the interesting thing that I find with this is that it almost sits as a separate brand. Coachtopia has its own social accounts. It has a slightly different creative direction. So you saw there, it's very youthful, it's very colourful. They blend stop motion animation, claymation, you know, lots of kind of really clever editing tricks. The influences that they're using there are slightly younger. So like Lola Tung, for instance, is an actress that is very much in that kind of Gen Z space. They're using a different type of audience. They're trying to target a different type of audience. And I think it's really clever that the way that they've taken an initiative and almost made their own brand out of it that still sits under that Coach umbrella. Because that kind of ad is not going to appeal to everyone, and it's not going to appeal to what I would assume would be the classic Coach customer that I would expect, which is, you know, a slightly older person. You know, they're not going to be maybe as captured by an ad of that kind. But I think the fact that it's got such a high click-through rate, even for TikTok, shows that people are genuinely really interested. It sends them through to a bespoke landing page that talks more about that Coachtopia initiative, takes them through what it means, you know, the different kind of fabrics and the recycling and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a campaign in itself that I think has been really successful. And Coach do this a lot in terms of breaking things out into separate parts. So their outlet has a separate TikTok account. So they're not promoting any sales or outlet items on their main TikTok channel. Coach Outlet has its own ad account. They're serving their own types of ads that is promoting kind of their outlet products. So it sits separately, which means I think they're able to manage it differently. They're able to kind of manage customer acquisition costs and lifetime value differently, because they know that the average order value is going to be slightly lower. So they've done it really cleverly, I think, from a audience perspective, but also from them being able to almost manage the campaigns in-house, I would assume can be treated differently depending on the different accounts. So that's one thing I wanted to touch upon. The second thing is they had a What's in My Tabby campaign, Tabby being their most popular, almost like flagship style of bag. And when you think of like what's in my bag videos, I think of publications like Vogue, kind of doing a what's in my handbag segment. And most of the time it's items, you know, like my keys or my purse or my lipstick, and they're like tangible items. Coach took a slightly different approach to talking about what's in the tabby. So again, I've got a video to show you. This is with actress Camila Mendes.
Mendes, and this is what I carry in my tabby. I carry all my past experiences, all the different versions of myself. That's what I carry.
That's clever again, isn't it?
So very, very short, ideal for socials, 15 seconds. Again, click-through rate is sat at around 25% high. Obviously on creative, on the TikTok kind of ad library, creative center, you don't get to see, unfortunately, what like the ROAS and the revenue looks like. But you know, click-through rate I think is still a really good KPI for us to be looking at in terms of success of these videos. Really clever to not mention any product.
Yeah.
You know, she's talking about her past self and kind of things that again is you can connect to as an audience. Little Nas X does a very similar video, what's in his tabby, and he talks about finding courage and kind of his future self and, you know, his hopes and dreams. So rather than it being a kind of what we normally would see on organic social videos in terms of those like behind the scenes, this is actually what's in my bag. They've taken that format and they've really used it, I think, to try and connect with their audiences. Obviously, these are professionally produced videos. There's been, you know, high level of editing, a high level of filming. But that's not to say that if you were a luxury brand looking to kind of take these ideas and put your own spin on them, that you would have to do it on that level of budget. These videos are really easy to film. You don't necessarily need an A-list celebrity to do them either, which I think is a misconception maybe, especially within luxury, that you think you need like a big celebrity. You don't even necessarily need a person to feature at all. If you were going to be clever about how you shot it, you could use hands and you could use voiceover, and you wouldn't even need to get the person's face in the video. So I think, you know, taking a look at this way of what's already popular and what's already working, especially when we know there are certain formats, especially within luxury UGC in particular, that work in terms of behind the scenes or, you know, filming certain products. And then how can we be creative with it, like Coach have been, and use that to connect to our audience in a more meaningful way, in a more emotional way. And I think that's something that they've done really well. I'm running out of time, but I do want to say, if anyone is on TikTok, look at Coach's TikTok page. Their organic content is so frequent and it's so varied. They're doing a lot of behind the scenes. They're doing loads of UGC, and I mean loads of UGC. They're at fashion shows. They're using content creators. They are using animations, and it's so varied. I think it's such a good example and a really good place to go for inspiration if you're thinking, don't quite know how to tap into TikTok in particular. It's a good place to go. Their social team are nailing it from that perspective. And if you look in Creative Center, you'll see how effective those ads are. The click-through rates are astonishing. And you can also see like the view-through rates and things, and they're all the stats there are all great. So a really good example, in my opinion, to look at.
It's also they're using the storytelling really to cut through, aren't they? Because the whole thing about social these days and the big challenge brands have is actually getting some cut through from what is lots and lots of noise, and that noise is getting greater every day. And so by finding something unique like that and delivering it to the audience is a way to get some standout, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think they've really found their personality as well, and they're really leaning into that, which for a luxury brand, I think it's not necessarily rare, but I think it is unique for them to take such a strong brand personality now that it does really help them stand out, rather than just being another kind of luxury brand that is making nice videos. They've got a very clear angle, I think, which is great.
Yeah, I think the message is really, really important in what we're seeing. Whether in the case of the first example of sustainability, or the second angle, which everyone can relate, right? What you carry, but what you carry in terms of the stuff I put in my purse, but also all my past experience, my history, my emotions, etc. And it's very relatable to everyone at any age. So yeah, really, really clever message. Very strong example of a strong message.
Cool. Andy, I'm going to come to you. What are you going to talk about?
So, a bit left field, but
Right.
I'm going to talk about Triumph motorcycles. Okay. Bear
If
with
that
me.
if that doesn't show the differences between us all, I don't know what will.
A diverse bunch.
Yeah.
But there's a reason for it. So, yes, I'm a big motorcycle fan. I've been riding motorcycles for nearly 30 years, so I know quite a lot about it. I'm familiar with Triumph because I'm in the sort of fan club, as it were. But the interesting point about Triumph motorcycles is they're a British brand built in Coventry, started 120 years ago. 120 years ago to about the 1940s, 1950s, they were known for not particularly great motorcycles. They leaked a lot. They broke down frequently. There was huge problems with oil leaking out the engines, even on new ones. They didn't have the greatest reputation for mechanics, but out of all of the British brands, including some car manufacturers, they have got the strongest following even then. And they have been very, very good over the years, and I'll come on to the rebrand that they did earlier this year, but over the years, they've become really, really good at spinning what is a poorly built motorcycle into something that is more building a community and an audience of people and teaching them how to fix it. So you've got this following of people that buy a new bike, or used to, not now, but buy a new bike and then go, okay, right, now I need to know how to fix it. And so the Triumph Bonnevilles, that was one of the most iconic brands of the sort of 50s, 60s. They were, suspect of breaking down, but they were on films. They were written by Hollywood heroes. They did a really clever job at that. Earlier this year, they had a rebrand and launched a new campaign, essentially, which was off the back of a shift in their sort of strategy as a brand. They moved away from what they were just known as, and they rebranded under 4 key pillars. One was excellence, one was innovation, one was performance, and one was passion. And what they're trying to do is address all of the sort of wrongs, I guess, if that's the right phrase, that they were known for in the past. They wanted to be elevated. They wanted to be seen as a premium product and a premium brand that competes with the likes of BMW motorcycles and the more known Honda and Yamaha brands. So what they did is under the innovation area, they built 3 or 4 different lines of motorcycles, different styles. So they were typically road bikes. So they started building adventure and off-road motorcycles, partly to chase a trend in the space, but actually to say to the loyal audiences, look, we're moving on and we're in a different era. And second of all, was part of recruitment. So they wanted to get new people on board that didn't have time to repair leaky engines and broken down motorcycles 100 miles from home. So they wanted to tell people that they'd done things differently and they were moving in a different direction. Performance They were not necessarily known as very fast motorcycles. It was more trendy motorcycles. It was more the bike you wanted to have because of the way it looked and what your friends thought of you by owning a Triumph Bonneville back in the day. But they wanted to switch that and say, actually, no, our engines now are absolutely cutting edge and the performance is good, it's fast, it's reliable. And so to do that, to set the stall out, they attended the land speed record. So they built a frame around the motorcycle to try and compete in the highest possible speed on two wheels across land. And so what that did was basically say, look, our engineers and our engineering is way in advance of what we've done before. And it reinforces that whole shift and change in the brand. But the most important one, excellence, is just in delivering a good product, was what they were focused on around that. The fourth one was passion. This is what they've always been good at. But what they've done in the last, say, 2 or 3 years, and particularly this year, is they've gone out and connected with the community. So in any biker event, they have a presence. So there's a huge cafe stroke bar in London called the Bike Shed, where lots of people go on a Saturday and a Sunday, and Ace Cafe as well, just on the M25, I think it is, just south. They are in all of these locations, either via sponsorship or by having someone that does test rides or having someone that's in that community talking about the brand. Any of the big bike shows, NEC in Birmingham, the ones across Europe, they have a presence in those areas. And their presence is not about selling their bikes. It's all about telling the community how they're different and what's different and why they're different. And so in summary, they've adopted a storytelling approach across a number of different narratives that are centered around excellence, innovation, performance, and passion, to tell their audience, existing-wise, we're different, and to recruit an additional audience as well. And 2024 has seen huge increases in their revenue and their popularity continue to rise, particularly in the US. So it just shows how a brand can go from, what is known for a certain thing, and they can transform that in the way in which they communicate their brand and how they design and build their product to create it from what is a sort of more run-of-the-mill brand into what is now seen as a competition for the likes of Ducati and BMW.
Yeah, I think everyone loves an underdog as well, don't they?
Yeah.
Like a phoenix rising from the ashes. So if they have had a certain reputation in the past and they've been able to combat that, I think people really champion those types of brands. In the most part, anyway, people tend to really champion it. So I think it's about like managing reputation, isn't it? Which is something that I think was battered around a little bit over the past couple of years in terms of like managing reputation on socials in particular, when you're getting, how you speak to your customers that maybe have feedback or criticism, and brands are kind of like championed on change. If they're able to take feedback on board and actually evolve over time, they tend to stand the test of time better, I think, than brands that aren't able to take that on board. So it's interesting, isn't it?
Cool.
Great. Well, I think there are 3 really different examples there of kind of what we notice as marketers. I think you've got an insight into our personalities, I think. But also, the different ways that luxury brands are able to really gain attention. I think it's 3 good examples with UGG and David talking about kind of the social aspect in terms of execution, and UGG being really good at being able to cover all their bases across Meta, and they've got all of the different ad formats, and everything's all connected and it's all kind of one big strategy. I think that's a really good example. Coach being slightly more experimental and using initiatives and adopting a younger audience, I think is a good example, which we see quite a lot with luxury brands in terms of trying to access that slightly younger demographic. And then with Triumph and kind of coming back from the brink of death with a new rebrand. And I think that rebrands are something that we're going to continue to see over the next couple of years, with brands kind of taking a real look at their audience and how they're speaking to them. So I don't think it's the last rebrand we'll see.
No, absolutely.
Any last comments from anyone?
Not from me. No, it's been enjoyable listening to everyone's different view on things, and because the original brief for the webinar was just go and find something, a campaign you think's done really well, and then talk about it. So it's quite interesting, different angles that we've taken, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it shows the diversity that still sits within the luxury space.
Yeah.
People tend to put everything all in one bucket, but actually it's so varied, isn't it? When you actually take a closer look at what these brands are doing, it's so diverse.
It's also great to see that we three comes really from different places, and then we mix our all our perspectives, and it gives a great functioning team. We create great stuff where we're proud about that works for our clients, and so diversity again is a great thing.
Amazing. Well, that's closed out our final webinar of 2024.
Wow,
to those of
wow.
you,
Wow.
yeah, well, for those of you that have joined us on multiple occasions, hopefully you found this year's series helpful, insightful, educational, and we're going to come back in the new year with lots more to talk about. So stay tuned. Happy holidays, and we'll see you all in January.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.